Welcome to Cosmic Tales, a show about the myths, history, and science hidden in the night sky. I'm your host, Diana, and together we'll explore the cosmos one tale at a time. On a clear winter night, follow Orion's belt to the southeast and keep going. You'll run into something impossible to miss. Blazing low in the southern sky is a star so bright it demands your attention. A brilliant blue-white beacon that's been catching people's eyes for as long as humans have been looking up at the night sky. That is Sirius, the dog star, the brightest star in the entire night sky. And the constellation it anchors is Canis Major, the greater dog, one of Orion's two hunting companions, running at the heels of the hunter just below and to the south. To the north, smaller and considerably less flashy, Canis Minor keeps its distance. Two stars, a name, and the quiet dignity of a constellation that knows it is not the main event, but shows up reliably anyway. But before we talk about the stars themselves, we have to talk about the dogs. Because the myths attached to these constellations are, even by Greek mythology's dramatic standards, unforgettable. One myth involves a logical paradox so complete that Zeus had to turn two animals to stone just to bring it to an end. The other involves a dog who died of grief. Both end, as so many Greek stories do, with the figures placed among the stars. Let's dive into the ancient drama that turned a group of stars into a legend. Although modern star charts show Orion accompanied by two faithful hunting dogs, the myths tell a more complicated story. Laelaps and Myrrha didn't originally belong to Orion at all. They belonged to completely different heroes. Over time, Greek and Roman astronomers began arranging the sky into a grand celestial tableau, pairing the greatest hunter with the most famous mythical dogs to create the hunting scene we recognize today. Laelaps was no ordinary hunting dog. He had one remarkable gift. He was destined to catch anything he chased. Not most things, not almost everything, everything. He simply could never fail. That wasn't just a reputation, it was built in the fabric of fate itself. Laelaps had been given originally to Europa by Zeus, in a gift basket that also included a bronze guardian named Talos and an unerring javelin. Zeus apparently believed in comprehensive gift packages. Over the years, Laelaps passed from owner to owner before finally ending up with Cephalus, a skilled Athenian hunter who was about to run into a problem that no amount of hunting talent could possibly solve. The region of Thebes was being terrorized by the Tumesian fox. This was not an ordinary fox. While Laelaps was destined to catch whatever it chased, the Tumesian fox was destined never to be caught. No hunter could capture it. No trap could hold it. It was quite literally impossible. The people of Thebes had no idea what to do, so they called on Cephalus. His solution seemed obvious. If any dog could catch the uncatchable fox, surely it would be Laelaps. Instead, Cephalus accidentally broke the universe. Laelaps, the dog that could never fail, was now chasing a fox that could never be caught. The dog ran, the fox ran, and they just kept running. Neither destiny could come true without canceling out the other. It was a perfect paradox, a collision between two absolute truths that couldn't both exist at the same time. Imagine handing the universe an unstoppable force and an immovable object, then asking it to pick a winner. According to the myth, Zeus looked down at this impossible chase and realized there was only one way to end it. He turned both animals to stone and placed them among the stars. The chase was over, but not really. Neither destiny had been fulfilled, and neither had been broken. Instead, Zeus froze the paradox in place, preserving it forever. It's almost as if the universe itself looked at the problem, shrugged, and said, "What are you going to do?" Laelaps became Canis Major, while the Tumesian fox has sometimes been linked to a nearby constellation, though ancient sources never quite agree on which one. Both of them are still running in the only sense that remains possible, fixed in the sky mid-stride, the chase eternal and the outcome permanently undecided. This is one of the clearest examples in Greek mythology of what happens when two divine absolutes collide. The solution, apparently, was for Zeus to turn both sides to stone and declare the problem solved. The story of the smaller dog is quieter, but in some ways it is even more touching. Canis Minor was most commonly identified with Maira, the dog of Icarius, an Athenian who had the unusual honor of being personally taught winemaking by Dionysus himself. It was a great honor. What followed next was not. Icarius, eager to share his knowledge with others, made wine and offered it to a group of shepherds. The shepherds drank it, became deeply intoxicated, and, having never felt the effects of wine before, mistook their drunkenness for signs of poisoning. Terrified, they turned on Icarius and killed him. To be fair, it was an understandable mistake for people who had never experienced wine before. But unfortunately for Icarius, it was still a mistake that ended his life. Maira found his master's body and led Icarius's daughter Erigone to the site of the killing. Erigone, overcome with grief, hanged herself. Maira, having now lost both his master and the daughter, died of grief. 3 deaths: the man, his daughter, his dog. All because one act of generosity and one tragic misunderstanding about what happens when grapes become wine. Dionysus was devastated by the death of his student and by the tragedy that followed. Icarius became Bootes, Erigone became Virgo, and Maira became Canis Minor, the faithful dog placed in the heavens to remain near the stars of his master forever. This is not a story about a great hero, a terrible mistake, or the punishment of mortals who dared to reach too far. It's a story about loyalty and grief and the extraordinary quality of a dog's devotion, the way a dog will find you, lead others to you, and then simply not know what to do with a world in which you are no longer present. Dionysus apparently found that devotion worth commemorating. It's hard to argue with him. The Greeks looked at Canis Major and saw a hunting dog, loyal, trained, and obedient, running faithfully at his master's side across the sky. The Chinese looked at those stars and saw something much wilder. In Chinese astronomical tradition, Sirius, the dog star, was known as Tiānláng, the celestial wolf, not a companion, not a hunting partner, a wolf, fierce, independent, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous. Because of that, Sirius, or Tiānláng, was watched carefully by Chinese court astronomers. It was not just a star used for navigation, it was a sign to be interpreted. A bright, steady Sirius was considered a favorable sign, suggesting military stability and order. But an unusual appearance, if the star seemed to flicker, change color, or appear unexpectedly brighter or dimmer, could be interpreted as a warning of war, invasion, or political unrest. The region around Sirius was associated with military power and the protection of the empire, with nearby asterisms representing armies, generals, and the movement of troops across the sky. In Chinese astronomy, Sirius was almost like a military intelligence report written across the sky, delivered nightly to anyone trained to read it. While ancient Chinese astronomers knew Sirius as Tiānláng, the celestial wolf, later Chinese folklore tells of another famous heavenly canine, Xiao Chen Xuan, the magical hunting dog of Erlang Shen, one of the most popular divine warriors in Chinese mythology. Erlang Shen was a god with extraordinary abilities. He had 3 eyes, 2 ordinary eyes, and a third vertical eye in the center of his forehead that could see through disguises and illusions. It made him a remarkably effective hunter and someone difficult to fool. He carried a 3-pointed, double-edged spear and appeared prominently in Journey to the West, the great 16th century Chinese novel that remains one of the most influential works in East Asian literature. In the story, he was one of the few beings powerful enough to challenge the Monkey King in battle, which was no small achievement, considering the Monkey King spent much of the story defeating, outsmarting, or embarrassing nearly everyone else in the celestial realm. At Erlang Shen's side ran Xiao Chen Xuan, the howling celestial dog, his constant companion in both hunting and battle. This was no ordinary animal. The dog was a creature of supernatural ferocity, known for its incredible strength, fierce loyalty, and a howl that was said to shake the heavens themselves. It was, in other words, not the kind of dog you put on a leash and let sleep at the foot of your bed at night. In the sky, the image of the celestial dog, combined with the wolf symbolism of Tiānláng, gave the Canis Major region a powerful, watchful, and even intimidating quality. It was a very different interpretation from the Greek image of a faithful hunting companion trotting obediently across the heavens. The contrast between the 2 traditions is worth sitting with for a moment, because it reveals something deeper about the cultures that created these stories. The same stars were above both civilizations, but they saw very different things looking back at them. The Greeks had long since embraced dogs as hunting companions by the time their constellation traditions took shape. So it's not surprising that they looked up at Canis Major and saw a loyal, well-trained dog faithfully following Orion across the sky. It reflects a culture where dogs were partners in the hunt, valuable, dependable, and closely tied to the people they served. The Chinese tradition tells a different story. Instead of a faithful hunting dog, they saw a wolf, an independent, powerful animal with a nature all its own. It wasn't something to command or rely on. It was something to watch, understand, and respect. Its behavior carried meaning, and the people who studied the sky paid close attention to what it might be trying to tell them. What's fascinating is that both cultures looked at the same star and saw a canine hunter. The difference wasn't the star, the difference was the relationship. So, what exactly are we looking at when we look at Canis Major and Canis Minor? Let's start with the obvious. Canis Major is home to Sirius, the brightest star in the entire night sky, and it's not even a close contest. Sirius shines almost twice as brightly as the next brightest star, making it one of those objects that, once you found it, you'll wonder how you ever missed it. On a winter evening in the northern hemisphere, look toward the southern sky and find the 3 bright stars in a short, straight line. They look almost as if someone deliberately placed them there. This is Orion's belt, the easiest part of Orion to recognize. Follow that line downward toward the horizon and it will lead you directly to Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. It's one of the easiest stars in the sky to locate, and it does an excellent job of announcing exactly where it is. Canis Major sits south of Orion, which is appropriate. The great hunter with his dogs, the larger of which marks its position with the brightest star in the sky. Canis Minor, on the other hand, is much more understated. It's a small constellation with just 2 prominent stars and no bright, deep sky objects to draw your attention. It is, in the most affectionate way possible, a supporting character. But it's supporting something remarkable. Sirius and Canis Major, Procyon and Canis Minor, and Betelgeuse in Orion form one of the most recognizable patterns in the winter sky, the winter triangle. Once you learn to spot those 3 stars, they become a wonderful guide to everything else around them. It's one of the easiest asterisms to use for finding your way across the winter sky. It also happens to be a snapshot of stellar evolution. Betelgeuse is a red supergiant nearing the end of its life. Sirius is a hot white star, still in the long, stable phase of its life, much like our Sun, but hotter and more massive. Procyon is a subgiant that has just begun to leave the main sequence. So on any clear winter night, those 3 stars let you see 3 different stages in a star's life, all connected by an imaginary triangle stretching across the sky. And of those 3, Sirius has attracted the most attention throughout human history, and it has certainly earned it. Sirius is a hot, white, and relatively young star. It's about twice the mass of our Sun and gives off roughly 25 times more energy. But the reason it dominates our night sky isn't just because it's powerful, it's because it's close. At only 8.6 light years away, Sirius is the 5th nearest star system to Earth. So what we're really seeing is a fairly typical bright star that just happens to live in our cosmic neighborhood. It is the astronomical equivalent of a modestly talented person sitting in the front row of a theater. They appear more impressive than they might otherwise because of where they are sitting. Sirius also has a companion. It's actually a binary star system with a second star called Sirius B orbiting alongside it. Sirius B is a white dwarf, the incredibly dense remnant of a star that was once even more massive than Sirius itself. It also has an important place in the history of astronomy because it is one of the first white dwarfs ever discovered and the first one that made astronomers realize how strange these objects really were. The story of that discovery is pretty remarkable. In 1844, the astronomer Friedrich Bessel noticed that Sirius seemed to wobble slightly as it moved across the sky. He couldn't see anything causing it, but he correctly concluded that an invisible companion had to be tugging on it with its gravity. Nearly 20 years later, in 1862, astronomer Alvin Graham Clark was testing a brand new telescope when he finally spotted the faint companion. Astronomers soon realized they had found something completely unexpected, an object about the size of Earth with roughly the mass of the Sun. Matter was packed so tightly inside Sirius B that it forced scientists to rethink what stars could become. To give you an idea of just how dense it is, a single teaspoon of material from Sirius B would weigh about 5 tons here on Earth. Needless to say, it would not be a very welcoming place to visit. One last thing about Sirius, and this may be its most practical claim to fame. Every winter, Sirius is responsible for a surprising number of UFO reports. Because it sits low in the southern sky, its light has to pass through a thick layer of Earth's atmosphere before it reaches us. That turbulent air bends and scatters the light, causing Sirius to twinkle dramatically and flash shades of red, blue, green, and sometimes even yellow, a show of color that catches the attention of anyone who happens to glance at the southern horizon on a clear winter night and is not expecting it. Before you report a multicolored light hovering in the south, check whether Orion's belt is visible. If it is, follow it southeast. The light is, very probably, Sirius doing what it always does, dressed up by atmospheric optics, entirely unbothered by the misunderstanding. Not every impressive star in Canis Major announces itself. Take Wesen, for example. At first glance, it looks like a fairly ordinary star tucked into the hindquarters of the great dog. It's easy to notice, but just as easy to overlook. In reality, Wesen is anything but ordinary. It's a yellow-white subgiant, hundreds of times larger than the Sun, and shines with roughly 50,000 times the Sun's luminosity. It's one of the largest stars you can see with the naked eye. So, why doesn't it dominate the sky? Because it's about 1,600 light years away. To put that in perspective, its light began its journey to Earth during the Roman Empire. Distance has given it a disguise that proximity would immediately strip away. Sirius appears bright because it's close. Wesen appears bright despite sitting most of the way across the local galaxy, because it is a cosmic behemoth. Then there's Adhara, the second brightest star in Canis Major and the 22nd brightest star in the entire night sky. It also has one of the most fascinating backstories of any bright star. About 4.7 million years ago, Adhara was much closer to our solar system than it is today. Back then, it blazed several times brighter than it does now, rivaling the brightness of Venus, making it one of the brightest objects in the night sky. Adhara was shining at its brightest while our distant ancestors were beginning the long evolutionary journey that would eventually lead it to modern humanity. By the time anyone was in a position to write it down, it had moved on. And its story isn't over. Adhara has already exhausted the hydrogen fuel in its core, meaning it's well on its way through the later stages of stellar evolution. Someday, it is expected to end its life in a spectacular supernova. Just don't stay up waiting for it. And then there is VY Canis Majoris, a star so enormous that the numbers are difficult to take seriously. VY Canis Majoris is a red hypergiant. And yes, hypergiant is an actual category. Apparently, astronomers looked at stars like this and decided that supergiant simply didn't express its size adequately. The star is roughly 1,400 times wider than our Sun. If it somehow replaced the Sun at the center of our solar system, the planets wouldn't just get hotter, they'd be inside the star. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and probably even Jupiter would orbit not through space, but through the outer atmosphere of a red hypergiant. VY Canis Majoris is also astonishingly young by star standards, only about 8.2 million years old. But the biggest stars live fast and die young. They burn through their nuclear fuel with reckless speed that enormous mass demands. And VY Canis Majoris is already nearing the end of its life. It's surrounded by a vast cloud of gas and dust that it has been shedding into space as it becomes increasingly unstable. At some point, probably within the next 100,000 years, it is expected to explode as a supernova. Now, 100,000 years may not sound soon to us, but on astronomical timescales, that's practically tomorrow. Perhaps the most surprising thing about VY Canis Majoris is how ordinary it looks. From nearly 3,820 light years away, it appears as nothing more than a faint reddish point of light. And that's one of astronomy's greatest ironies. One of the largest stars you can see with the naked eye is also one of the easiest to overlook. Over in Canis Minor, things are a little quieter, but there are still a few surprises waiting. The constellation's brightest star is Procyon, the 8th brightest star in the night sky. Its name means before the dog because it rises a little before Sirius. At just 11.5 light years away, it's also one of our closest stellar neighbors. Like Sirius, Procyon isn't alone. It's actually a binary star system, and its companion, Procyon b, is a white dwarf, one of the closest white dwarfs to Earth. It's the burned-out core of a once living star packed into a sphere about the size of the Earth while still containing nearly half the mass of our Sun. So, while Procyon shines as a bright, ordinary-looking star, it's quietly orbiting the remains of the stellar corpse of Procyon b. It's a perfectly pleasant-looking system with a rather macabre secret. Gomesa, the only other notable star in Canis Minor, is less famous but has one genuinely memorable quality. It spins really fast. In fact, it rotates so quickly that it's actually flung some of its own material off its equator, creating a disk of glowing gas around the star. Astronomers classify stars like this as BE stars. The E stands for emission, referring to the glowing gas surrounding them. You can think of Gomesa as a star that's spinning so enthusiastically, it's literally throwing pieces of itself into space. But unlike several of the massive stars we've talked about today, Gomesa isn't heading for a supernova. At about 3.5 times the Sun's mass, it simply isn't heavy enough. That dramatic ending is reserved for much bigger stars. Someday, once it's burned through its fuel, Gomesa will do what our own Sun eventually will, shed its outer layers quietly and settle into a white dwarf. Not bad for a little star in a little constellation. It keeps itself remarkably busy, right up until it decides to go out quietly instead. Canis Major is also home to a couple of fascinating deep sky objects. Canis Minor, on the other hand, having done its best with 2 stars, contributes nothing further and exits gracefully. The first of Canis Major's deep sky objects is Messier 41, an open star cluster located about 4 degrees south of Sirius. Under dark skies, you might just spot it with the naked eye, but a pair of binoculars brings it to life. It contains about 100 stars, all born from the same giant cloud of gas around 200 million years ago. Those stars have been traveling through the galaxy together ever since. That's really what an open cluster is. It's not just a random collection of stars that happen to be in the same part of the sky. They're siblings, stars that were born together and are still making their journey through space as a group, even though they'll eventually drift farther and farther apart over millions of years. The other object of interest in Canis Major is NGC 2359, one of the most visually dramatic objects in the constellation. It's better known by its nickname, Thor's helmet, for the winged shape it makes in photographs. Thor's helmet is a bubble of glowing gas created by the powerful stellar winds of a massive and incredibly rare Wolf-Rayet star. A Wolf-Rayet star is a massive star that's literally blowing itself apart. It blasts material into space at millions of miles per hour, and that rushing debris crashes into older clouds of gas around the star, piling them into the glowing wing-like shape that gives Thor's helmet its name. Thor's helmet isn't a monument the star will leave behind. It's a portrait of the star's last violent breath while it's still very much alive. Long before this Wolf-Rayet star ever reaches its supernova, the bubble itself will likely have thinned out and dispersed back into the galaxy, and when the star finally does explode, it won't preserve this shape at all. It'll create something else entirely, a fresh supernova remnant born from the wreckage of the very star that carved this helmet into the dark. Another fascinating object in Canis Major is the Dolphin Head Nebula, also known as SH2 308. Like Thor's helmet, it's a bubble of glowing gas created by a Wolf-Rayet star. In this case, the bubble, otherwise known as the Dolphin Head Nebula, stretches an incredible 60 light-years across. It's one of the largest Wolf-Rayet bubbles in this part of the sky, and a great example of what massive stars do long before they explode. Their powerful winds reshape the space around them, sweeping gas and dust into vast glowing bubbles. Bubbles that are, on cosmic time scales, surprisingly short-lived, lasting only a few 100,000 years before thinning back into the galaxy. The Wolf-Rayet star at the heart of the Dolphin Head Nebula is already transforming its corner of the galaxy. When it finally explodes as a supernova, it'll reshape that neighborhood all over again. And finally, we come to one of the most intriguing objects associated with Canis Major, the Canis Major dwarf galaxy, or more accurately, what many astronomers believe are the remains of this dwarf galaxy, though it genuinely is contested. Other researchers think what we're seeing isn't a foreign galaxy being consumed at all, but a warped, clumpy part of the Milky Way's own disk, misread as an intruder. It is, if the interpretation is correct, one of the closest known satellite galaxies to the Milky Way. The Milky Way's gravity is slowly pulling the Canis Major dwarf galaxy apart, stretching it until its stars are gradually becoming part of our own galaxy. The Milky Way itself is not a finished object. It's still growing. Over billions of years, our galaxy has become larger by pulling in and merging with smaller galaxies, adding their stars to its own. The Canis Major dwarf appears to be another chapter in that story. It's in the slow process of losing its identity as a separate galaxy and becoming part of something much larger. It's a merger on a scale that's almost impossible to imagine, so vast and so gradual that it will take millions of years to unfold with no dramatic conclusion, no sudden flash, just gravity quietly reshaping the galaxy one star at a time. The two hunting dogs of Orion are, between them, a study in contrast. Canis Major announces itself with Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, and has one of the largest stars we've ever found disguised as an ordinary, faint point of light, and contains a nebula shaped like a superhero's helmet. Canis Minor shows up with two stars, one of which is hiding a dead companion, and then sits quietly for the rest of the episode. But they share the winter sky together, running at the heels of the hunter who connects them. And on a clear winter night, when Sirius blazes low in the south and Procyon answers it from across the winter triangle, and Betelgeuse glows red above them both, you can stand outside and see the whole picture at once. The hunter and his dogs. 3 stages of stellar evolution drawn across the sky in 3 bright stars. A family portrait of the winter repeated every year, patient as the stars themselves. Which is, when you think about it, exactly what a good hunting dog does. Shows up reliably, does the job, and never makes a fuss about it. Except for Gomesa, which is spinning so fast it's throwing pieces of itself into space. But every family has one. This has been Cosmic Tales. If you've enjoyed tonight's journey, follow and subscribe wherever you listen, and leave a rating if you have a moment. It genuinely helps. You can also find us on Instagram at Cosmic Tales Pod, where we post images of the constellations and deep sky objects we talk about so you can follow along visually. Until next time, keep looking up, because every star has a story waiting to be told.